we're not thinking about the questions that we're asking our customers. And, and if you're strategic minded in the way that's going to best serve your company and your customer, you have to get to those questions. Questions are everything. Questions are the most important thing. Is getting to the bottom of the why. That's what you should be asking.
Greetings, folks, and thank you for joining us. You're listening to Lifetime Value, the customer success podcast, where we help you wrap up the week that was in customer success and start you off on the right foot for the one ahead of you. I am your esteemed host, Dillon Young, and this week's guest of honor is a celebrity in the customer success space, though I will tell you she blushed when I told her I'd be calling her that. She is a comment on every customer success post on LinkedIn. She is at least an attendee, but more often a panelist on every CS webinar you have attended. And she is one letter shy of having as many letters appended to her name, MBA, CSPO, CSM, as I just have total in my name. She is a principal consultant at the Success League, where she has helped many businesses plan, build, and scale their customer success teams. She is a co-lead of the DE&I initiative at Gain, Grow, Retain. She is a founding member of CS Insider, where she helps lead the community. And that's saying nothing about her volunteer work, which is voluminous. When I finally give her a chance to speak here in a minute, she'll play it down, and she's going to tell you she just loves customer success. But I ain't never seen someone miraculously, inexplicably unearth more hours in the day to do what she does just for loving customer success. And folks, I simply have no other explanation for how it is she can do all of this. Ladies and gentlemen, Jan Young is with us today. And Jan, before I let you speak, I just want to say that is your punishment for not giving me a bio ahead of this podcast. I'm going to make you awkwardly uncomfortable with the kudos. So, Jan, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, apparently I don't get everything done in the day that I need to because I did not send you the bio. And I certainly, you're correct, I would not have described myself in many of those ways. But it is true. I do love customer success. I love community. I love the CS community. And so any opportunity I get to geek out about CS, I try to take up on it. There's probably a few webinars. In fact, even there was a webinar yesterday that Dan and over at Immersa that I would have loved to have attended, and I just need to catch up on the recording. So there's plenty of them that I don't get to attend. Unfortunately, there's this whole thing called work.
Yeah, that pesky thing. So
yeah,
Jan, tell us a little bit more about the Success League and what you do there.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was doing my own solopreneur consulting, I thought I wanted to go and work with a team. I thought that I would want to continue working with founders in early stage startups, and I would go and be like first in CSM, CS leader at a place that only had like 10 people or something like that. And I was, interviewing and talking to, meeting number of different CEOs and trying to find my match. And then through that is how I ended up meeting Kristen. And I thought that I was going to be moving away from consulting. I ended up staying in consulting just because Kristen Hare, who founded Success League, she has some incredible IP just in terms of what her approach and to the foundations of CS is. And then she's been adding on other CS leaders and along the way who continue to contribute to that. And so when I ended up, so there's really, 7 of us now, in the whole team. So it is a boutique customer success consultancy. And when I got to interview with them and geek out about CS, it was like, okay, this sounds like right up my, speed. And then, we get to do some really fun things. We have public and private certifications. And when I say private, it's like if you have a team of 10 or more,
right.
we'll
Okay.
customize it to your team. But you can do certifications or courses, but for CSMs, but also for CS leaders. And so often CS leaders are expected to sort of wing it, and they don't get someone to walk them through what the fundamentals are, like, customer base, segmentation and building out a customer journey, and how do you structure your team based upon what your needs are, and just all of those kind of things. How do you incentivize them through comp and other things? How do you build a health score that actually works for that customer journey and your customer base so that it's meaningful and it isn't like, oh, another green customer churned, because that's when it's meaningless, right? And so, like, so first of all, there's that, but then we extend that to all the workshops and consulting that we do. We also get, like, a couple of times now, I've been an interim VP of CS at various startups. So I get to actually fulfill, what I was looking for to do is more specifically in that way too. Um, we think about like thought leadership in CS, and I love thinking about CS, so I get to do that too. I mean, it's really like, everything I love doing, I get to do with Success League. So, in fact, actually, what I'm working on right now is a CS Ops certification, and so hope to launch that pretty soon, maybe in Q2.
That's pretty cool. So my second question here is, what are you passionate about? And I think you pretty much summed that up. So I'm going to skip right over. And obviously, we're going to keep talking about customer success, which was going to be your answer. I know that. How did you find customer success? Like, what brought you? I mean, I guess it's been a couple of years now, like when you were a solopreneur doing the customer success consultancy stuff. But like, how did you? Let's zoom even further out. Like, how did you find it, and what was attractive about it from your perspective, and so why do you stick around?
Right. Well, actually, because I've done a lot of different things leading up to CS. I did some project management. I've always organized things. I've always been sort of about community. I did a marketing job, which I really appreciate and value marketing. I hate doing it myself. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't I stuck it out for 2 years because I thought I needed to stay in a gig for 2 years. But yeah, I just hate marketing because I hate advertising. Anyway, whatever. But all of that, I did that over at Paramount Studios, and then from there I started moving over because besides CS, I really love tech. I
Mm.
really love geeking out and what the potential is, and with tech and how it empowers people. I'd say that what I really love is how you get to empower people, whether it's through customer success or through um, tech or through community building. Like I'm really about collaboration and empowering others. So then when I switched jobs from the marketing job, it was technically sort of like a sales account management job, but my boss had already signed on like 300 customers like the year before, and it was always post sales. And so from the very beginning, I was in the post sales motion and was essentially sort of intuitively, or based upon maybe when you think about, like, I don't know, for anybody who's done product, so like a jobs to be done, where you start thinking about the customer and what does the customer need. And then sort of another term that Liz Lee had sort of coined, but where I've always sort of lived, and I really want it to be more of a term that we use in the industry, is sort of value milestones, which is like that intersection between what is important to the company and what is important to the customer, and what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, how you make revenue, like those intersections, those value milestones. Like that's where I've always sort of enjoyed living and thinking about, right? And like thinking about what does the customer need next? And are we the ones to provide that? Right. So anyway, so that's what I was kind of doing in that job. And I at the time, I didn't know that it was called customer success, and I don't know if it really had that term widespread at the time. Anyway, so it wasn't until later that I found the terms like customer experience and customer success. But I've been focused, since I've started um, moved to since I found my sort of calling after like going through all these different types of jobs that I've done in tech. Once I started focusing on the post sale motion and that journey, like it's always been about customer success. And I don't even know if I've ever been called a CSM. I don't think I have. But I've always focused on the post sale motion.
Oh, that's really interesting, having never been called it, and you're such a champion of it. And I think that's an interesting
Yeah.
perspective shift, right? Of like it comes in a lot of different forms and fashions and names. Doesn't necessarily need to be called customer success for it to be doing a lot of the same functions and motions. All right. We have to take a step back and we have to play a little game here
Okay.
because you violated one of our main tenets here at Lifetime Value, and we heard your work messaging software go off. So we like to play a little game of truth or dare.
Yeah.
And the way this works
Yeah.
is you can either tell us what that message said, roll the dice, and if you
Yeah.
do, I will personally donate $50 to your charity of choice. Or that's actually the dare. I get them mixed up all the time. The truth would be you have to tell us your worst customer horror story.
Well, I can go either way. The noise that you heard was Slack, and that's because I really like using Slack. I like using Slack better
Don't
than
use this as
email.
an advertisement for Slack.
No, I'm not trying to do that. I have a problem though that I know I'm supposed to like I don't know, even when I close it, the messages keep coming up. Like, but the
I
messages
hear
keep
Slack
coming
in my
up. So I
sleep too. That's not unique to you.
No, I can't get the notifications to turn off. Or even if I close Slack, still I get the notifications come up. So I know that there's some setting in there, but I have dozens of Slack communities there. We don't actually even use it. We use Google Chat for Success League. What I have is with my coaching clients, I have Slack. With any of the companies that I am doing private courses with, I set up Slack channels. Um, I have with CS Insider and Gain Grow Retain, with Women in CS, with there's customereducation.org, there's Rocket Lane has a Slack channel. There's three different customer marketing ones. There's another Thrive is one that's sort of New York based that's become during the pandemic. Like I haven't gone through all of them. The Customer Success Leadership
You're not
Network.
going to convince me you don't have a
Um,
deal with the devil. I don't know where you get all this time.
well, no, it's more that I look at them to see sort of like what things are trending. Is there a topic that I can help somebody with? Like I'm not in all of them in every channel all
Right.
the time. But I do like to kind of, check in and see what's going on. Some of them are, like the Gain Grow Retain or the CS Insider. That's just for people who are organizing for it. Sorry, my chair keeps falling. But but you know, but yeah, I mean, otherwise, and some of them are sort of tangentially work in that it's the projects I'm doing work, my clients. But then yeah, a lot of them are communities, and I do love communities. I mentioned it before, but with CS Office Hours, which was a Tuesday gathering that I started when I was in one of my interim gigs, I had to hire a bunch of folks. Not everybody could. Basically, there were like 80 people. I posted about it on LinkedIn. There was one week in particular because I was hiring a VP of CS, a bunch of CSMs, like five of them, manager of support, onboarding manager, and I was hoping to also get a good CS ops candidate as well. So I was hiring for like the whole CS org, basically, right? And so I posted about it, and about 80 people wanted to have half-hour meetings with
Oof.
me. Not
Yeah.
possible, right? Can't do it. So I set up an office hour, and I did it like at the end of the day that was convenient for me on Tuesday. It was at 4:30. And so basically then we just kept meeting on a weekly basis. Well, then now it's become a Slack community as well. And we turned it into, instead of it being about those jobs, just about various CS topics. And so now we just meet and we just call it CS office hours, and we just meet every week, and I bring in different leaders to like talk, and there's no slides, it's just discussion, and people bring questions and people bring insights, and we all talk about some sort of topic. But again, like I created a community for that too, just because, well, and people did ask for that one though. I didn't create it
You're trying to
originally.
defend yourself now. I have to tell you, I commend you for trying to filibuster me here, but you are not going to weasel out of this. It is truth or dare. Pick your poison.
All right. I'll see what it was. Oh, I ran. I ran over on my training session today with one of the private CSM certification thing. It was around time and portfolio management, but I ran over because we were really digging
Ironic.
into, you know, how they can get out of reaction in being, kind of reaction mode into
Hmm.
proactive. And so anyway, so I posted the slides and the worksheet, and I need to post the video. And I apologized. And one of the people in the course said, "No need to be sorry. This one is very important to me as I find ways to help solve inefficiencies as we're in the season of transition to take our CS org to the next level. We appreciate your insight." So that was the response that I just got
There
was,
you go.
and
Painless. So
and I did a little part in the back to
you
it.
will you will share your charity of choice after the fact, and I will I'll include proof of that into my show notes along with everything else you're saying. Like, this is going to be the hardest show ever for me to edit because I've got 25 Slack channels alone I've got to go find and link to. Anyway.
I that I give out the links all the time. I can
Okay,
help
good.
with that.
I'm going to need it. Let's jump into our
Yeah.
topics. The format of this podcast is we of course want to keep folks up to date on the biggest conversations occurring in the customer success world from the past roughly 7 days, but it's been a little while since we recorded, so we're gonna extend that out a little bit further. But let's hit our first topic. This is an interview with Mohammed. I hope I'm pronouncing this last name right. Alcock. He was the founder of Customer Success Middle East. He interviewed Rav Dhaliwal, which everybody should be familiar with. If you're not, I'll share some of his information in the show notes as well. But basically, Mohammed asked, what makes an ideal CSM? And Rav predictably responded, so much of what makes an ideal CSM candidate has to do with the stage the company is in. He goes on to note that there are certain table stakes, communication skills, technical acumen, commercial acumen, and those are kind of big. Those seem obvious after they're mentioned, right? But the rest of the skills can and should be molded to the company, the market that they're going after, as well as the company's life cycle. And I want to get your opinion on, what do you think about that? Do you agree with that overall? And then I do have a follow-up question.
Yeah, I mean, so I would add into sort of the table stakes that you need to be very strategic
Mm,
minded, that a good CSM is always thinking strategically. There's, I think a little bit of empathy, but then you also really want to think about data and how you're going to analyze data and how you track data. That's really important as well. But I think what he's trying to get to is that maybe when there's only 10 people or up to 30 people in a company, and the CSM is playing the role of several different departments that are post sales and that fall under CS, and that would be onboarding, uh, adoption, renewals, and upsells, cross selling. If there is any sort of cross selling that you might do or upselling, when you're
right.
at that early stage, certainly renewals, support. All of those different types of functions under CS. I think that you could say that those actually take a variety of different skill sets and aptitudes when you're performing all of those things, right? And whereas when you get like at 100 million ARR, or something like that for a company, by then all of those types of roles have been separated out. At that point, then you have someone who's working on onboarding and implementation. You have someone else who's maybe like doing customer education, customer marketing. You have CS ops roles. You have a CSM who is focused on adoption and renewals and upselling. If you get to, however, like complex agreements, You may have even renewals and upselling separated out. I like over at Okta, I know somebody who all she does is renewals. She's under the CS,
Hmm.
umbrella team, but she's just focused on renewals. And then again, by very early on, you want to separate out, what the support team is doing, and which is not just a reaction and reaction based role. You want to proactively think about what kinds of questions are coming in so that you can provide some of that proactively in FAQs or education and things like that, so people aren't just calling in all the time but can get that information themselves. But anyway, to all that said, I can see how what Rob is saying is that depending upon the um, the stage of the company or the stage of the CS program, you may have a CSM who has to be that Jack or Jill of all trades under this umbrella. But then eventually you can separate it out, and then eventually the CSM is focused on just one area, just that one area of that customer journey that's post sales.
So my follow-up question, I feel like you've diffused the
Yep.
bomb that was my follow-up question, because it is, how does that explanation, that understanding of customer success look? We are every day fighting for a seat at the table. We're fighting for the respect of our peers and our organizations, because so often we talk about how customer success is a culture, it's a mindset, and so it doesn't just live with us. We need to convince an entire organization. So we're always fighting for that. And so my question was, how does what Rav explains, starting broad, getting more narrow as you mature as an organization, does that help or hurt the CS profession? And your answer, I think, is an equally impactful "it depends" as his original statement was. That's what it feels like to me, at least.
Well, but there are still those out there, especially folks who only really understand SaaS business models from a sales-led growth perspective, where they would then think perhaps that CS just happens, that renewals
Mm.
just happen. And that you can just throw it over the fence and it'll just happen, as opposed to having to be focused on it. And there's even an article that Jason Lemkin wrote where he said, CS is just the catch-all, and I guess it's just destined to be the catch-all. And it's like I vehemently disagree with that because that's not actually best practice. You want your CSMs to be strategic and to really be thinking through how they can help your customers achieve value and the outcomes that they were looking for when they purchase your product. You want to be sure that that's what your CSMs are focused on. Now, part of that is how they're onboarded, if they're adopting, all of those other things, are they getting the support that they need, et cetera. So all of those things sort of are part of that post-sale motion. And that's why then the specialization happens. But regardless, CSMs always have to stick with what is the strategic um, uh, approach to these accounts that we should be taking, right? And how are we strategically helping them, achieve the outcomes and goals that they have in mind, why they purchased the product in the first place.
And that makes sense. That was an add-on for the table stakes that you wanted to make sure was in there, was that strategy piece, and I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yep.
So this comes from Chris Hicken, CEO of Nuff Said, and he actually posted, this was late in 2022, so a couple of weeks ago, but he made a strong and I think unintentionally funny argument that the mandate for customer success here in 2023 ought to be all about product market fit. And I don't know that that is I don't know that that's groundbreaking, right? That's a pretty common chorus that you hear within the CS community. But he specifically states that a great success team enables other teams to do their job with customer value data, in part by helping to identify certain issues that a customer might experience. And he goes on to list them, things like the problem being solved isn't severe enough, the product UX is terrible, product is missing features. And so, as you notice, the three examples I gave, and there's a bunch more, are all in some way, in my mind, feeble mind, they overlap either a little bit or a lot with the responsibilities of product in most tech companies. And that always, when there's overlap like that, particularly in an environment that we're seeing right now, tons of reductions happening, right? Everybody's fighting for the same market share, dollars cost more money, so on and so forth. Is it a dangerous realization that there is a significant overlap there? Or should it be a rejiggering in our heads of who owns those things?
No, I mean, look, I do believe that product should be talking to customers, but ultimately, product has sort of evolved into um, just focusing on sort of what the product roadmap is and how to organize the engineer's time, right? And so, product has become more of an internal facing role. I disagree with that a little bit. I think that they need to find ways of connecting with the customer, but there's only so many hours in the day, and that has defaulted to the CSMs. And I think though that that is okay to some degree if you are finding ways to build those joint customer success plans with your customers so that you understand what goals they have that you're trying to help them achieve, so to ensure that they are receiving that value and you're communicating back to them, what value they've received and that sort of thing, right? Like you should be close enough, whether you're doing the high touch model or even ways of doing lower touch or tech touch model. There's ways in which the CSM should understand and have that outward focus with the customer, right? And be able to bring that back in because there's a number of ways in which CS being at the crux of that relationship with the between the customer and the company, right? That they should be bringing that back in and working cross functionally. There are ways in which you learn about the sales process, how that either is missing to some degree or marketing in terms of the expectations set, with the customer before they are, actually using the product. And then also, especially when you're looking at early stage companies where they will think, okay, I've built the minimal, the MVP, the minimally viable
Mm-hmm.
product. So I'm done now. I can now work on the next product. But the point is you're not done, right? Because it's just the minimally viable
Right.
product, right? And so it doesn't actually solve all the problems. It's just like the beginning of it. And so before they move on to think about how to build the next MVP, you need to find a way of communicating back to product what are the most important features that need to be added so that it actually is a product market fit, right? And I think that's what Chris is sort of talking about there. Is then that does become, especially at that stage, a very important thing for the customer if voice to come into the company and for CS then to be able to organize, that type of thing. And the problem is usually we're asking the wrong question. Either we become order takers because every single customer is asking, well, I want that button to be blue. Well, I want that button to be a triangle. I want that button to be a square,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And you just become order takers like, oh, okay, you want it to be blue. Oh, okay, you want it to be a triangle. You need to ask those discovery questions when you're getting these kinds of feature requests to find out what the business impact is. Why do they want it to be blue? Oh, your favorite color is blue? That has no business impact? Okay. Oh, if it was a triangle, then all of these people who can't see squares or rectangles, now they're going to be able to see it. This is having an impact on your business because half the people who use the product can't find the button. And if they can't find the button, then they can't use the product or something
Sure.
like that. Like, fine. Okay. If there is a business impact, then that's where you need to find out that. It may not be the answer of it being a triangle. It may be that product comes up with a different answer from it, but if you dig enough to understand what is keeping them from using the product effectively as it is built today, that's what product needs to understand. And that's what you need to understand too, right? To get to the bottom of it. So I do think that there's a role in that. But also, then we ask absolutely the wrong questions when we do surveys. We do NPS. NPS is built for B2C. NPS is, are you going to recommend your Nikes to grandma and your neighbor across the street? Okay, good. Let's find out. Then you know how viral it's really going to be, right? NPS does not help you. You need to change the question. If you change the question, it's not NPS, but it can be a product market fit question, right? Do you need this product? Is it a must have? Is it a nice to have? Or is it, I could do without? Things like that. Product is the question you need to ask. We're not thinking about the questions that we're asking our
Hmm.
customers. And and if you're strategic minded in the way that's going to best serve your company and your customer, you have to get to those questions. Questions are everything. Questions are the most important thing. It's getting to the bottom of the why. And that's what you should be
I
asking.
do the Jerry Maguire a lot. Show me the money. I try to trace. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but trying to trace back to the monetary, financial, economic
Yep.
impact to the customer answers a ton
Yep.
of questions for you, and you can do so in the other direction too. Like, what's the total contract value of this customer, and that can help influence whether their ridiculous triangle button request gets any level of consideration. Right? If they're your largest customer by a magnitude of 20, maybe you make the triangle button. What that does for CSMs is it absolutely demands the strengthening of the muscle of understanding the the whole business strategy of your customers.
But I would only say if this is your biggest customer by magnitude of 20, then you're not necessarily creating a SaaS product. If every
Mm-hmm.
request they come in, all you've done is customize it more to them. You need to be sure that like a SaaS product is something that works across more, right? And so you want to understand the customer base segmentation, right? So that you can get more of those whatever. If it's whatever, Nike, then you also want to be sure that your product will also work for Adidas
Sure.
or whatever, anybody else, kind of thing. And it doesn't, and then you want to say, okay, and can it work for the clothing customers? And can it work for, whatever else, like where you're really starting to extend and to other folks. You want to make your product work better for more people, not just better for one. And that's why you don't necessarily make a triangle button, even if it is your biggest customer.
I want to take a
Okay.
left turn here, Jan, and I
Okay.
want to I want to step into the classroom. As we
All right.
prepared for this podcast, you shared a topic that you wanted to near and dear to your heart, something you're thinking about a lot, taking up real estate in your brain. And this is a post by Kevin Chu, the co-founder of Catalyst. He has a lot of great content, but in this post in particular, which will of course be in the show notes, he is making the case for balance versus burn, where burn has been kind of the standard in the Silicon Valley strategy for a long time now. So what he basically says is that the age of the unicorn is over and it's time to bring in the camels, companies that can sustain themselves without much sustenance for long periods of time. So tossing out the blitz scaling and the valley of death terms, and instead let's usher in sustainable growth and strategic approach as the new terms that we follow. So the reason I want to step into the classroom is because I read this and I understand all the words that are on the screen, but it still tied my brain up into a pretzel a little bit. So I want to give you an opportunity to explain what this means to you, and I'll ask some very 101 level questions, perhaps.
Sure. So yeah, what I think that it gets to is, some of the things, even, oh my gosh, I'm so horrible with names. And this is somebody, Jung Kim. Yes, yes, yes. This is something that we actually did CS Office Hours topic about too, is like, well, what makes a company a startup versus just another SMB mom and pop? And part of that is you want to have that high growth. And the high growth means you're going to have these investors. And what are the investors valuing? And what sort of timeline are they looking at getting a turnaround on their investment, right? And so when you're taking a look at like what up until recently, up until maybe 6 months ago, all of the startups, what the investors were asking of the startups is, what is your growth? I want to know what your growth is. They started to ask too about NRR, which is retention as well as expansion is NRR, right? But otherwise, they wanted to know how many new customers are you attracting in, and what is your overall ARR. They weren't even really asking what were their expenses, because it was sort of assumed that the investors were going to be bankrolling them for a while, so that they would get in there and get into the marketplace first, so they could dominate and capture the market. And the point was, they were just going to grow. They were all focusing on growing, not being profitable at first, but growing. And so then you think about, then these investors are sort of figuring, I'm going to be able to get my money back in about 6 to 10 years, maybe something like that. But they're not necessarily trying to get their money back right away. When you take a look at when money becomes expensive, like how it has with the I know another
Mm,
one.
we can only do it
Yeah,
once.
sorry.
I don't
Yes,
have
thank you.
unlimited
Should.
dollars for these donations.
I, I didn't have ways. I'm sorry. I will really work on that though. But anyway, so when you think about, though, as money becomes more expensive, right? Now that the feds are increasing, the rates, and so borrowing money is more expensive, right? So now that money isn't as cheap by the investors, right? And so how much time they're going to keep money, with a company, and a company that might fail in the marketplace. Now they're more concerned about it. And they're not so willing to just throw money out there, because now it costs them more. They need to see a higher return. So now they're like, okay, what is your runway? When are you going to be profitable? When is that break even point? And you have to start to show when you become a viable product. That wasn't how it was before. So now, if you need to show that you're going to be a viable product by X, amount of months or years or whatever, and you need to show that that, you may or may not get that investment from those investors. And if you don't, then you have to think about your own runway and how long can you last with the money that you've been given. And that's kind of the change. And that's why they're talking about sustainable growth. So you're not going off and building all these different products that might get you in the marketplace, but it doesn't allow you to be profitable for 3 or 5 years out. You don't have that long a runway. Now, what do you need to build now that you can make money off within the next, before you run out, so you can start to make money back, so that you can be profitable, right? It's that difference. And that's why he's talking about the camel versus the unicorn. The camel is trying to hold on to the water, so he's not going
Hmm.
to run out of water while he's in the desert, or she's in the desert. But then, whereas a unicorn is like that elusive thing, and one day may happen, you might have a sighting of it,
Which,
right? And so that's the difference between those animals. It's the difference between those business models for the
which I
startups.
think the analogy might need a little work because unicorns are magical. I don't believe that they die. But let me ask you this: knowing that,
Yeah.
that's going to be
Yeah.
the conversation at every organization, or it should be.
Wait, before that. So, like, the CS leader needs to understand
Okay.
that stuff that I was just
Hmm.
describing because of that. Do you know what I mean? Because that is the conversation. That is the
Hmm.
new reality. But yeah, sorry. What was your question?
Excuse me. What? How does CS as a whole, the entire organization within a company, starts with the leader, but I think all the way down to individual contributor level? How do they change their talk track? How do they change what they're focusing on? Where can they throw their weight behind to help with that new focus, that new mandate?
Well, in the same way that they should have been all along, is you need to think about what is important to the company. My company, these are the top three things that we're looking at. How does that impact CS? What are we trying to do in CS? The same sort of thing where the class I was teaching, this morning, around how do you prioritize your book of business, right? And so, what should I be doing? Who is going to be renewing this quarter? What do I, going back to, from the date that they're renewing, how am I going back to that? What sort of renewal rate am I going to get for my book of business? What sort of upsells can I do in this quarter with my book of business, right? You should be paying attention to what sort of opportunities you have. Now, upselling in the post sale motion, upselling is different, or maybe even still has similarities to pre sales in that you can't just upsell to everybody. You need to think about who's ready for which product. Where's the white space really, right? Because if I start talking to you about buying a tuxedo, right? And you don't need a tuxedo, you don't want to hear about it. In the same sense, but if I start talking to you about an interview suit, and you do need an interview suit, nobody wears suits to interviews anymore, but if you did, then that's the right conversation to have, right? And so, like, both of those are suits, but which product is it? When you're talking to your customer, do they actually need what you would be upselling? It's your job as CSM to understand who is primed and who would get value out of the products that you have, because that's when you can make the rationale to their benefit and to your own benefit that this is a product they should be buying right now, and that's to achieve what their goals are. That's why you do the success plans. That's why you do the account plans. You set yourself up so that you can do those upsells to the people who need it, and you can project then. This is how many upsells I think I can do from my book of business, because this is who I think needs the product. You might talk to other people about these products so that when they're ready, they might know about it, because maybe they're ready for something and you don't realize it. But you're not really trying to sell it to them because you don't think that they're ready for it, right? You want to make them successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think there's something to be said for going back to the Chris Hicken post and topic around product market fit. And I think that's another,
Yep.
Going back to your explanation of Kevin Chu's post was, what it used to be like. And it was kind of like get a bunch of MVPs out there, right? See what sticks,
Yep.
see where you get
Yep.
a ton of interest, see where
Yep.
you just see hockey stick growth and interest, and then
Mm-hmm.
figure it out from there. And if you
Yep.
combine those two thought processes now, so Kevin's talking about a more strategic approach, growing
Yep.
sustainably over time. You cannot just invent anything and everything and see what sticks to the wall. It's got to be a much more measured approach. And in that way, CS obviously being the on the front lines with the customer has a very important responsibility in making sure that product market fit is locked tight. And everything else you said about the ability to upsell. I actually am interested to understand how you look at upsell, because from my perspective, my experience, it's always been more of the same thing they're already buying, right? Typically seats in software or consumption, which is the easiest thing to sell if they need it. It's the hardest thing to sell if they don't, because...
And you shouldn't give it to them if they don't. They'll stop trusting you, and then they don't want to buy something from you when they really do
100%.
need it. That's the whole point of understanding if they're ready to buy it. So maybe I'm not just talking about upselling. I'm also talking about cross-selling.
Expansion
right?
in general.
Expansion in general, right? Is what I'm talking about, because there could be adjacent products. Like you have this problem, but you also have this problem, and our product works really well with this other product. With these two products together, this will extend and solve several of your problems by using this add-on product as well, kind of thing. Like the way that you sort of, but it's about understanding what problem they're trying to solve and understanding those problems. And it isn't just through high touch one-on-one conversations. You can also look at their behavior in terms of how they're using your product. You can look at what's happening with their support calls, and what problems and things they're trying to achieve there. You can send out surveys. There's a variety of ways in which you can, whether you are talking to them or not talking to them, and what level of if it's high touch, mid touch, low touch, tech touch, ways you can get that information from customers.
And in fact, that feedback loop is much more diverse and healthy than if you were to just
Yeah.
talk to your largest customers that necessitate a high touch relationship. All right, Professor Young,
Yeah.
we need to move on. I appreciate that. You've expanded my mind. We're going to leave the classroom and we're going to go straight to the track because we are going to run through this conclusion very quickly in the interest of time. But
All right.
the first thing we ask of folks before they leave us, they depart, is if you could call out one individual within the customer success community that is really knocking it out of the park in the last 7 days, who would you call out? Who do you want to give kudos to?
Um, I don't know. Maybe I would actually go back to Kevin Chu, actually, even though he is not in CS, but he has a CS platform. But I think the way that he is sort of bringing together the conversation that CEOs, salespeople, and CS folks should all be thinking about. He's really sort of knocking it out of the park in terms of setting up some of those conversations. And I, you know, I think largely I agree with a lot of things he's putting out there. I don't know if I always do, but he's always setting up really deep and interesting and sometimes controversial conversations about it. And so I think that really adds a lot of value to kind of what we should be thinking about in CS.
I came across their brand new CRO, Mark Kozaglow,
Oh, yeah.
before I came across Kevin. And I feel like they
Yeah.
robbed the bank with that guy. He's also really sharp. And he's all over the place
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. I might see his name more often than I see yours.
Probably. He's got a lot more
If you
followers.
could take the audience members and point them in the direction of any one thing or activity, what would you refer them to?
Any one thing or activity. I guess discovery questions and understanding how to sell in the post-sale motion, maybe.
Customer success
kind of what
until you die. Personally, I would say the most recent
Thanks.
season of Yellowstone, but discovery questions is just as thrilling.
Okay.
That's fine. No, there's no redos. That's all you get.
No, I didn't know what you were talking about. Okay, I just finished watching Treason on Amazon. Is that kind of what you're looking
It's
for?
whatever you want. I love
Yeah.
that the first thing you thought about was discovery questions, though. There it is. Dyed in the wool.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, I mean, I do other things. I play pickleball. Whatever. There's other things. Right now it's just raining, so all I've been doing is watching stuff on
Fair.
like Amazon and
Fair.
Netflix
So
and stuff, but
it's Treason. What streaming service is that on?
I think it was on Amazon. Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, there's some other ones I liked even better, but it was pretty good.
Not a rousing endorsement, but we're gonna have to move on. Where can folks connect with you, Jan?
My highest recommendation to not overstate something is that it's worth watching. That's the highest I can say. So so I put it one level below worth watching. It's like, because there's just a couple of tweaks I would do.
So it's worth watching. Like that small hesitation at the end.
No, I mean we're a tough crowd here when we're watching stuff. Like, there are times when they'll do something out of convenience in a plot that we kind of call out quite a bit. We talk back to our TV.
What are you doing? It's not what you should have. It doesn't develop the character enough.
Yeah, something like that.
Where can folks connect with you, Jan?
Well, probably LinkedIn is the easiest. I am setting up a Notion page that will collect all my stuff because I feel like I need to. But otherwise, I write primarily for Success League and sometimes other places, and then I do podcasts all over the place and stuff like that because I'll geek out if you ask me. But yeah, so I'm going to try and get that Notion page together
and
to make it easier.
You mentioned the Success League, of course. Where can folks find out more about that?
At the successleague.io.
.io. Okay. Perfect.
And I'm just Ann Young CX on LinkedIn.
Cool. And I'll add that to the show notes. Jan, it has been an absolute pleasure. You made me laugh. You expanded my mind. And I think we learned some stuff too. So thank you so much for joining us.
I was just going to say, as long as I didn't make you cry.
Well, maybe when I listen back. No. All good. Thank you so much, Jan.
You've been listening to Lifetime Value, the podcast for customer success professionals. If you like what you've heard, please rate our show and subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Please note that the views expressed in these conversations are attributed only to those individuals on this podcast and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of their respective employers. For all inquiries, please reach out via email to Dillon@lifetimevaluepodcast.com. Find us on YouTube via our channel Lifetime Value, and find us on the socials at Lifetime Value Podcast. Until next time.
I got to tell you, if NPS were a company, I would have multiple cease and desist letters on my doorstep by now. They have been so deserved. But unfortunately, they have been maligned on just about every conversation I've had thus far.
Well, yeah, and for good reason.